Have you ever stopped to wonder why men often struggle to share what's really in their hearts? What if I said that a man utterly in love with you is already showing it, but in a way most women don't notice? Carl Jung revealed how the unconscious mind doesn't communicate with logic. It expresses itself through symbols, patterns, behavior. When it comes to love, men's unconscious frequently reveals far more than their words ever will. You see, men don't always articulate "I love you" in the way we've been led to expect by movies and fairy tales. They rarely declare it on social media or scream it from rooftops. When a man is profoundly in love, he communicates through subtle codes, simple phrases with vast emotional depth. And here's the truth nobody mentions. Most women miss it. They overlook it because they're waiting for romance. But what he offers is reverence. They expect grand gestures, but he gives quiet devotion. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So today we're illuminating that hidden language because the man in your life, or the one who's soon to arrive, might already be speaking to you from the core of his being. It's just not in words you're ready for. And that's exactly what I'm here to reveal. I'll show you the 7 phrases a man only says when he's all in. Body, mind, soul. They won't be poetic. Some might even seem painfully ordinary. And that's the secret. These lines aren't about what he says, but when he says them, why he says them, how he delivers them. Think of it this way. A tiger doesn't purr like a pet cat. A volcano doesn't whistle like a tea kettle. And a man in love doesn't always say, "I love you," as he demonstrates it by breaking his emotional habits. And that's how you recognize it's genuine. Before we dive in, I'll ask just one thing. If anything here already stirs something in you, if your heart is whispering, "This makes sense," please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. I'm sharing this from my soul, not just to explain, but to help women decode how real affection speaks through men. Once you hear the first of these phrases, you'll never hear the same way again. You might even realize he's been loving you this whole time, in a language deeper than words. A man's strength isn't measured by what he can lift, it's revealed in who he trusts enough to share his weight with. So let's begin with a phrase that sounds so simple, so easy to overlook. What do you think? You've probably heard him say over coffee in the car, maybe even while he was browsing his phone, half distracted and looking at the ceiling. But when a man who truly loves you says those 4 little words, they carry immense meaning. It isn't casual chatter, it's a silent act of laying down his guard. Jung spoke of the male psyche as led by an inner warrior, the part trained for action, control, solitude, toughness. That warrior doesn't ask for advice, keep weaknesses, or rely on others. But when he turns to you and says, "What do you think?" he is stepping out of that armor, breaking his own code. He's not making small talk. He's saying, "I trust you with something meaningful to me." Imagine a soldier in the field, used to giving orders, running things alone, but in that moment he radios in, not for orders, but for you. He's not merely requesting your opinion, he's showing that your thoughts guide his direction. For a man, that's sacred. You might think, he just asked which shirt looks better. Big deal. But notice how he asks. Does he look at you, pause, lean in, soften his voice? It isn't about the clothes. It's about including you in his world. When he invites your insight, he isn't giving up power. He's sharing his life, recognizing you as partner, not a supporting actor in his story. Your perspective matters. Your voice is part of his path. Let me share Mara's story. Calm and thoughtful, in her 50s, they'd been partners for over a decade. One day they talked about retirement and he asked, "What do you think I should do?" She later said that moment meant more to her than any ring or romantic note. Because in that question, she felt he'd let her inside his heart. He couldn't imagine his future without her. The next time he asks you this, pause. Feel what he's saying. I need your wisdom. Your thoughts matter. You shape where we go. Don't ever doubt that your opinion makes a difference. Your insight is influence. Your voice is a compass in his storm. I had a rough day. That phrase might seem plain. He walks in, drops his keys, rubs his neck and says, "I had a rough day." That's it. Simple. But don't miss what he's offering. This isn't a casual comment. It's vulnerability. It's him pulling back his emotional defenses. Jung spoke of the warrior again, the part that mustn't show weakness. So many men carry pain and shield it because feeling vulnerable means stripping away what they think makes them a man. When he confesses, I had a rough day, he's choosing to be visible. He trusts you enough not to pretend everything's fine. Most men won't burst into tears or make grand emotional declarations, but when he gives you that small opening, today was hard, he's handing you the key to his inner world. That's a man whose heart already feels safe with you. And many women breeze past these moments. They jump in to fix things or brush them off as moodiness. But this is where love lives, in the authenticity of small, honest words that cost him more than you can imagine. You don't have to solve anything. You don't have to rush to comfort. You just need to hold the space for him. Let him sit. Maybe say nothing. Sometimes being near him quietly is the deepest gift. That's not distance. That's trust in its rawest form. When he says, I had a rough day, what he's really telling you is, this is where I feel safe. With you, I can lay down my armor. And when you respond with quiet grace, without pressure, judgment, or demands, you become his shelter in a storm. Don't overlook how powerful it is when a man softens in your presence. There's more ahead, more phrases that seem mundane but echo with devotion. The rest includes, I'll handle it, you decide, do it your way. You okay? And remember that time we. Each one drops another layer of the warrior armor and reveals the heart beneath. Everyone builds a language of loyalty, respect, and emotional intimacy. Stay tuned, because once you learn to hear the real meaning behind these simple lines, you'll see him and love so much more clearly. Because when he tells you about his stress, he's not simply complaining. He's opening up a part of his soul. And then comes something even softer. He doesn't express emotions directly, not with obvious words. Instead, he responds to something you've changed in his space. And that's where love speaks in a quieter way. Stay close now, because this is where it turns gentle. He says, I like how you fixed this. A man's space isn't only a room. It's where his identity finds shape and order. So let's pause on this sentence, which might sound simple but holds a deeper meaning. I like how you fix this. Maybe he says it after you fluffed the pillows or switched the mugs around or added a plant to that dull little corner. Maybe you moved the sofa slightly or placed something differently. Something tiny, something he never requested, but he noticed, and he says he likes it. Now let me tell you what that really means in plain words. When it comes to how a man thinks, his space is personal. His room, his car, his workspace, or even that messy shelf in the garage full of old stuff. Those aren't just places, they are signs of how he holds himself together. So when he lets someone adjust even a small part of it, it's not about personal style, it's about trust. When he says, I like how you fixed this, he's not only giving praise, he's letting you step into a part of his life he doesn't usually share. Access to a world he's built carefully to keep order. Access to a version of him most people never see. Because a man's life is usually divided, a place for work, a place for rest, a space to be alone. But when he lets you soften those lines, add a gentle touch, leave a bit of yourself. It's not just about decor, it's about what you mean. You're not just stopping by, you belong. You're not just making changes, you're becoming part of the whole picture. And that's not decorating. That's blending lives. You don't have to live with him to make a difference. Your presence alone begins to shift things. Suddenly he's lighting a candle instead of leaving his clothes on the floor. Suddenly he's picking up your favorite snacks. Suddenly there's room for your belongings, your books, your smell, your presence in soft ways. When he lets you influence his environment, he's really saying, you're shaping who I am. And I'm not scared of that anymore. Let me tell you about someone named Simone. She dated a man who had been living alone for many years, tidy, neat, very private. One day, she rearranged his kitchen just to make it feel easier, nothing major. When he got home, he looked around quietly and said, I like how you changed this. She didn't think much of it at the time, but weeks later, he mentioned it again. He said, that's when I realized I could allow someone into my life and still feel like myself. That's the power in those quiet words. It's not about home design. It's about releasing control. It's about sharing. It's about building a home together. So next time he says something like that, don't overlook it. He's not just approving your choices. He's showing you that you're part of his world now. And then he begins to do something else. He starts talking about the days ahead. But what he's really doing is offering you a glimpse of what forever might look like. Listen closely now. What are you doing tomorrow? We don't make plans with people we don't see a future with. So let's sit with that soft question. What are you doing tomorrow? You might hear it and assume he just wants to know if you're free, maybe for lunch or a casual meetup. But that's not what's truly happening. Not when it comes from a man who genuinely cares. Time for a man isn't only hours or dates. It's tied to his direction, his sense of purpose, the way he imagines his future. And when a man begins including you in that vision, even just one day ahead, it means something real is unfolding. Deep down, he's not just asking to see you. He's including you in his plans. And here's the truth most people don't notice. Men don't casually offer their future to just anyone. If he's creating space for you in it, it's because his heart is already moving toward you. When a man starts imagining you in his next day, his next weekend, his next month, he's already beginning to choose you for something more lasting. Because men are naturally wired to move forward toward the next task, the next mission, the next thing to build. But when he pauses and turns toward you to ask, what are you doing this weekend? He's not just asking for a date. He's picturing life with you in it. Each time he says, want to come with me next week? Or, I was thinking we could do that together. He's not only talking about plans, he's including you in his progress, in his movement forward. That's not just planning, that's emotional connection. Now let me share a story about Tara. She used to feel annoyed when her boyfriend always asked about her schedule for the next day, even when they had nothing planned. She thought maybe he was being too involved or trying to control things, until one day he looked at her and said, I just like knowing what your day looks like. It makes me feel close to you. And in that moment, it clicked. It wasn't about control, it was about closeness. So next time he asks that question, even if it feels like nothing, don't ignore it. He's not just being polite. He's seeing if you still fit into his world. And when he starts talking about what's next, he's not only planning ahead, he's beginning to build something emotional. And then something rare happens. He stops pretending to have all the answers. And when that happens, it's not weakness. It's one of the deepest signs of real love. The words are simple, but full of meaning. I don't know what to do. And that right there might surprise you because it doesn't sound confident. It doesn't sound like the strong man you've come to know, but it's actually one of the bravest things he can say. Let's take our time here. I don't know what to do. It's not just confusion. It's a man putting down his armor and showing you the part that's scared, the part that's unsure, the part that's real. For many women, it can feel like failure, like giving up. But for a man, it means something else. The famous psychologist Carl Jung once said that vulnerability is where true change begins, especially for men. And this is that moment when he looks you in the eyes and admits he doesn't have the answer. He's not falling apart. He's stepping closer, not as a hero, not as a provider, but as someone who trusts you deeply. With his doubt, with his turning point, with his questions. This isn't weakness. This is real depth. This is honesty. This is him saying, I believe in you enough to be open even when I feel lost. And if you respond to that moment with kindness, not criticism, with understanding, not advice, you offer something rare. You show him that he doesn't have to be perfect to be loved. Because real love isn't always grand or dramatic. Sometimes it sounds like, I don't know what to do, and feels like someone's staying anyway. The idea of the strong man, the warrior, is trained from the start to always have a plan, to lead, to fix things, and to never appear unsure. So when a man, especially one who usually keeps it together, turns to you and says, I don't know what to do, he is saying something powerful. I trust you enough to be seen, even without my strength. And that is sacred, because most men are taught to fear that moment, to bury it, to cover it with silence, to bury it in silence or get distracted or drift away. So if he shares that truth with you, if he lets the strong man image drop just a little to show he's uncertain, confused, or even afraid, he's not falling apart. He's opening up. And how you react to that makes all the difference. Because here's what usually goes down. Women get startled. They hear that and think, wait, aren't you the one who's supposed to have it all figured out? But he's not asking you to fix him. He's not even asking for a solution. He's simply looking for a space where his truth can exist without being judged. I'd say it like this: a man can only set down what weighs him down if he knows the ground beneath him won't collapse. Let me tell you a story. Janelle had been with her boyfriend for a long time. He was stable, calm, dependable. Then one day, during a tough moment in his career, he looked at her and said, "I don't know what to do anymore." She froze. Her first thought was, "Hold on, you're the one who's always had the plan." But instead of throwing advice or trying to help immediately, she just sat next to him, held his hand, and let him be exactly how he was without needing him to have it all together. Later, he told her, "That was when I knew I wanted to spend my life with you. Because you didn't expect me to be perfect, you just let me be honest." And that's what it's really about. Men don't need everything fixed. They need to feel that when their world shakes, you're not going to leave. So the next time he says, "I don't know what to do," don't treat it like a weakness. See it for what it truly is, an invitation into his real self. Because when a man shows you that he's unsure, it means he trusts you enough to be vulnerable. And that's powerful. That's love in its rawest form. Now there's another phrase, a sixth one, that might not sound romantic at first. He won't even say the word love. He'll just mention something that reminded him of you. But what he's really doing, that might open up your heart in a way you didn't expect. Stay with me. Phrase 6 is, "You made me think of." That moment, when you cross his mind out of nowhere without any effort, this is when you've carved out a place in his heart. Let's talk about a phrase that seems simple, even casual. He might say it while scrolling on his phone, watching TV, or walking through the grocery store. "You made me think of." And just like that, no effort, no fancy words, he reveals something huge. You're living in his mind even when you're not around. A lot of women might brush it off. "Oh, that's sweet." But if you really got what that meant, you'd stop for a second. You'd smile in a different way. Because this is memory building. This is emotional imprinting. Carl Jung once called it the merging of the feminine spirit with the masculine consciousness. And when that happens, it's not about logic anymore. It's about connection. Here's why it matters. The male mind tends to be focused. Men, both by nature and by upbringing, usually concentrate on one thing at a time. So if he thinks about you while he's working, hanging out, or in the middle of errands, that's not random. That's emotional closeness. That's love quietly showing up in his inner world. Because a man's thoughts are like his personal map, how he sees life, how he chooses where to go next. And when you appear on that map, when he says that song made me think of you, or that couple reminded me of our first trip, he's not just making small talk. He's showing you that you've become part of his lens on life. You're no longer just someone in his day. You're part of his perspective. I'd say if he thinks of you when you're not there, you've already taken root in his awareness. And that runs deeper than any romantic words. Let me share a story. Nia told me her boyfriend often brought up little things that made him think of her. A quote from a movie, a design on a shirt, something during his drive. At first, she thought it was cute, nothing more. But then one day he said to her, "Every time I'm about to make a big decision, I think about what you'd say." That's when it hit her. She wasn't just crossing his mind. She was shaping it. She was part of his inner voice. That's not just liking someone, that's being fully bonded. So the next time he says, "You made me think of," don't just smile and move on. Realize he's giving you a glimpse of his private world. You're not just in his heart, you're in his head. And when a man begins to include you in his mental space, he's already imagining you in his future. Then comes phrase number 7. Just one word changes, but that word means everything. When you hear it, you'll know this man doesn't see life as a one-man show anymore. Phrase 7. Do you think we should? When a man stops making plans alone, he's telling you that you're now part of his path. Let's explore this small phrase that carries huge meaning. Do you think we should? That tiny shift from I to we says so much. Until now, it was his journey, his choices, his timing. But once he starts using we, everything changes. It's not about grammar. It's about connection. Carl Jung said real bonding begins when two minds begin to blend. And in the male world, where strength and solitude are often celebrated, independence is key. That I is a big deal. So when he says we, even if it slips out casually, that's not just affection. That's evolution. Because in the masculine heart, we isn't used lightly. It means I don't just see you by my side, I see you within my story. It's no longer do I want this, it becomes do we want this? And often he might not even realize he shifted. It might come out while deciding what to eat. Do you think we should try that place? Or in bigger ways, do you think we should move? Do you think we should talk about what comes next? The question matters, but the wording matters more. Because when he's using we, he's no longer dreaming alone. He's building a shared future. I'd say when a man speaks using we, he's rewriting the whole narrative and making you part of the story. And it's not always a big thing. It's often slow, calm, and just becomes natural. But when you hear it, notice it, because that one word shows the change from individual to partner. Let me share one more story. Jasmine had been dating her boyfriend for 2 years. Everything felt good. No drama, no tension. But she still wasn't sure where things were headed. Then, one night, while they were chatting about plans for the following year, he said, "Do you think we should start looking at houses?" She didn't notice it at first, but later, lying in bed, those words echoed in her mind. We should. And that's when it